Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your sources, really get into them, and pull out the key insights so you can get up to speed quickly.
And today we're looking at some really fascinating ancient texts, specifically commentaries connected to the Dhammapada.
That's right. And the topic, we're exploring stories of conflict and character from these texts, trying to see what we can learn from them today.
Yeah, we've got two main stories pulled from the sources you provided. One's about this pretty intense family quarrel.
Over water, I believe.
Exactly. And the other looks at a really challenging figure from the past.
So our mission today, let's unpack these stories, figure out the core problems, spot those surprising little details in the commentary.
And pull out the lessons that still resonate. Timeless insights, really.
Okay, let's dive into that first source then, the one about the quarrel.
Right. So this involves two groups, the Sakiyas and the Koliyas.
Yeah.
We're related, actually.
Oh, okay.
And they shared this river, the Rohiṇī. Crucially, they relied on just one dam to manage the water for their crops.
One dam for two groups. Sounds like a potential issue right there.
Definitely. And the source tells us things come to a head in this specific month, Jauhamila. Think of it as a critical time, late spring maybe, when the crops are really vulnerable.
And they're starting to wither.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the farm workers from both sides gather at the dam. And, well, that's when the argument starts.
About the water, obviously.
Yes. The workers from Koliyanagra basically say, look, there isn't enough for both of us. They argue their crops just need one more watering to ripen properly. And so they claim the water should go to them.
Okay, that makes sense from their perspective. What about the Sakya workers?
Well, they push back hard. And interestingly, they bring economics into it almost immediately.
Oh, how so?
They argue that, if their granaries aren't full, they won't be able to trade successfully. They paint this picture of not being able to show up at the Koliyanagar doors with their valuable goods, gold, sapphires, gems.
So it's about prosperity, not just survival.
Seems like it, yeah. And they also insist their crops need just one more watering. So they demand the water too.
So both sides need it, both demand it.
Yeah.
What happens?
Predictably, it's a flat refusal on both sides.
Right.
We won't give it either.
Right.
And according to the source, it gets physical fast. They start hitching each other.
Wow.
But then, here's the crucial escalation the commentary points out. They start insulting the lineage of the royal families involved.
Oh, okay. That sounds serious. Why lineage? What kind of insults are we talking about?
This is key. The source says the insults were based on sensed points in each group's origin story, things they were maybe proud of, or perhaps things that were historically controversial.
Like what?
Well, the Koliyana workers apparently taunted the Sakiyas. Something like, take away your kids, you descendants of people who consorted with their own sisters like animals.
Whoa, that's harsh.
Extremely. And the source notes this likely ties back to a specific tradition about how the Sakya line began.
Okay, hitting below the belt. How did the Sakyas respond?
Just as fiercely. They shot back at the Koliyas, something like, you take away your children, you descendants of lepers who lived like destitute animals by the kola trees.
Goodness. So another origin story reference.
Exactly. The source indicates this likely referred to the Koliya founding story. So it's not just random name-calling. They're deliberately digging up these foundational, potentially shameful narratives to inflict maximum offense.
I can see how that would blow things up. It goes from a practical dispute over water
to physical fighting, and then instantly to these deeply personal historical attacks on their very identity.
So the workers take this back to their bosses.
Yep. The workers tell the ministers report to the royal families.
And the royals.
They are understandably enraged. Their honor, their lineage has been attacked. The Sakyas arm themselves, ready for battle, determined to show their strength against these insults.
And the Koliyas do the same.
The Koliyas do exactly the same, furious about the insults directed at their origins. Both sides are fully mobilized, ready for war. Over water, initially, but now over pride and lineage.
Okay, this is where the Buddha comes in, right?
Yes. The source says he foresaw the potential devastation. His own relatives about to destroy each other.
So what did he do?
He thought, I must go. And the text says he went alone, traveling through the air, and appeared sitting cross-legged right above the middle of the Rohiṇī River.
Through the air. Wow. Okay. How did the relatives react?
They saw him, and immediately they threw down their weapons. They bowed down. His presence just stopped everything.
Amazing. Did he speak to them?
He did. He asked them, what's this quarrel about?
And did they know?
Here's a fascinating detail. The royals themselves, the ones ready for war, they didn't actually know the original cause anymore.
Seriously, they forgot.
It seems so. The question had to be passed down the chain of command ministers, officials, until it reached the farm workers again.
The ones who started it all.
Right. And they said, it's a quarrel over water.
So it comes back to that. How did the Buddha handle it then?
He asked a simple but profound question. What is water worth?
And their answer?
They replied, little worth. Not very valuable in the grand scheme of things.
Okay.
Then he asked, and what are Sakiyas worth? Meaning the royals, the warriors, their own people.
And they said?
Priceless.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Exactly. The final poignant question. Is it right, he asked, for you to destroy priceless Sakiyas over something of little worth like water?
What did they say to that?
According to the source, they were just silent. It completely reframed the situation.
It put the value proposition right in front of them.
Precisely. He then taught them directly, saying what they were about to do was wrong. He stated point blank, if I hadn't come, today a river of blood would have flowed.
A powerful image.
Very. And he contrasted their state living, as he put it, afflicted by various kinds of hatred, burdened by inner defilements like greed and anger, always striving for sense pleasures, with his own state, living free from hatred, free from that inner affliction, free from that constant striving.
So showing them a different way to be.
Yes, and he shared verses emphasizing this idea of living very happily. The commentary explains this isn't just superficial happiness, but truly living well.
How does it define living well?
By contrasting it with negative ways of living like crime, or even just being caught up in worldly struggles. It means being free from those deep-seated hatreds, free from the afflictions of greed, anger, delusion.
And free from constantly chasing sensory pleasure.
Exactly. Free from striving for the five sense pleasures, cultivating inner peace instead.
And what was the result of this teaching?
The source says it had a huge impact. Many who heard him attained significant spiritual breakthroughs, like stream entry, which is a major step on the path.
Wow. So that first story really shows how the conflict over resources,
Fueled by pride, escalating through these really targeted insults about identity.
can get completely out of proportion to what's actually at stake.
Absolutely. And how a shift in perspective, just seeing the true value of life compared to the resource, can bring resolution. It also paints that stark contrast. Life entangled in conflict and striving versus a life of inner freedom.
That's a really clear takeaway. And it sets up the second source nicely, doesn't it? Because that one seems to shift from external conflict to something more internal.
Exactly. We move from a group conflict to the story of one individual, Devadatta, and the idea of internal ruin.
Okay, so what's the setting for this story?
The Buddha is at a place called Velavana, and this teaching comes up because some monks are discussing Devadatta.
Who was Devadatta, again, a relative of the Buddha, but also an antagonist.
That's right, known for his opposition. And the monks, according to our source, were talking about how immoral and, frankly, wicked he was.
What specifically were they pointing out?
They observed how this deep-seated craving, which seemed linked to his immorality, led him down a destructive path, gaining influence over King Ajatasattu.
King, right.
Achieving status and honor through that connection, but then using it for terrible things, like inciting the king to kill his own father.
Oh, wow. Patricide.
Yes, and then joining forces with that same king to make multiple attempts on the Buddha's life.
So, a pattern of seriously harmful actions driven by craving.
That's what the monks observed, and the Buddha confirmed it. He said, yes, Devadatta had tried to kill him many times, not just in this life, but in past lives too.
Okay, so this isn't a new problem for Devadatta.
Not at all. And this is where the Buddha introduces this concept of extreme immorality, akantadusala.
Extreme immorality, what does that mean?
He explains it using this really striking analogy. He says the craving that comes from such deep immorality is like a specific type of creeper vine, a maluva creeper.
Okay, what does the creeper do?
It completely covers a solid tree, a large, strong tree. It wraps around it, chokes it, and eventually breaks it.
So the craving is like this destructive vine.
Precisely. He says this crippling craving, like the creeper, drags the person down, throwing them into states of suffering, like hell realms or other lower rebirths.
That's intense. Did he give a verse for this too?
He did. A verse saying that someone whose extreme immorality is like that maluva creeper covering the solid tree. Well, he makes himself just as an enemy wishes him to be.
Meaning his own internal state becomes his worst enemy, leading to his own ruin.
Exactly. He brings about his own downfall, the very thing an enemy might wish upon him.
Let's dig into that term, extreme immorality. What does the commentary add? How deep does this go?
The commentary clarifies it's not just, having a bad day or making a mistake. It's complete immorality. For a layperson, it might mean consistently doing harmful actions. For someone ordained, maybe committing a really serious offense right from the start.
Okay.
But specifically for Devadatta, the source suggests it refers to an immorality that's persisted across lifetimes, maybe 2 or 3 existences.
What?
And it's rooted, again, in that craving, but specifically craving connected to the 6 senses, everything coming in through sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mind. It's like his whole way of interacting with the world fuels this state.
So it's a really ingrained fundamental condition, not just bad habits, but something deeper.
It seems so. A fundamental orientation towards craving and harm.
And the creeper analogy really drives that home.
It does. The commentary elaborates beautifully. The Maluva creeper wraps around the whole tree, right? It takes the rainwater that should nourish the tree, but uses it to grow stronger itself, tightening its grip, constricting the tree everywhere until it breaks and falls.
Just like the person is broken by their own craving.
Exactly. Broken by that internal creeper of craving and immorality, they fall into ruin, into lower states. They effectively self-destruct.
That image of being choked by your own internal state, that's incredibly powerful.
It really is. So putting these 2 deep dives together, what do we see?
Well, we have 2 distinct scenarios from these ancient texts.
Right. Different kinds of struggles.
The first one, the water quarrel, shows external conflict, how fighting over something small
Like water.
can explode because people misjudge what's truly valuable and let pride and those harsh words about identity take over.
And the resolution came from seeing clearly valuing life over the resource. It showed a path away from that cycle.
Then the second story, Devadatta, shifts inward. It shows how really deep-seated internal issues, that extreme immorality,
And the craving driving it.
don't just hurt others, but ultimately lead to the person's own ruin, like that vine choking the tree. Self-destruction, basically.
Yeah. So both stories, though different, really seem to highlight how crucial our internal world is. Our values, our attachments, our
They
craving,
massively impact our external actions, our relationships.
and our own ultimate fate or well-being.
Yeah.
The river conflict was driven by attachment and pride. Devadatta's path was paved by deep craving and ill will.
It really brings home that idea that whether the conflict is out there between groups or in here within a person, the mind state and what we value are fundamental.
Absolutely. According to these texts, that's where the real action is.
So turning to you, our listeners, why does digging into these ancient stories matter today?
Well, think about that river quarrel. Those dynamics fighting over something limited, letting pride escalate things, maybe saying things that cut deep. Does that echo anywhere?
In personal disagreements, family arguments, maybe even larger disputes we see in the world.
Exactly. Are we sometimes, maybe without realizing it, ready to damage something priceless? Our relationship, our peace, maybe even safety over something that in the bigger picture has little worth. Do we lose perspective on value?
And what about the second story? That idea of a negative trait or a powerful craving being like a creeper vine that chokes a tree?
Does that resonate with you? Can you see patterns in your own life, maybe? Unchecked habits, desires, maybe even persistent anger or fear?
Things that feel like they constrain you, limit you.
Yeah. Or maybe even lead you towards outcomes you don't actually want, like you're being sort of choked by your own internal state, preventing you from flourishing like that salad tree could.
So what really stands out to you from these 2 stories, from these insights?
Could shifting how you see value what's truly priceless versus what's just water change how you approach conflict, whether it's an argument with someone or an internal struggle?
And could understanding how craving works, seeing its potential to become like that destructive creeper, help you navigate your own inner world differently? Maybe help you avoid getting tangled up?
We really hope this deep dive into these old narratives has sparked some valuable thoughts.
It's clear these ancient texts capture some timeless truths about human behavior, isn't it?
Definitely. The danger of getting values mixed up, prioritizing the trivial over the truly precious.
And that powerful, maybe cautionary image of the self-destructive potential of unchecked negativity, of craving running rampant.
So here's a final thought, something provocative for you to mull over, building on these sources.
How much of the conflict, the stress, the suffering that you see around you, or maybe even experience yourself,
How much of it might actually be rooted in that fundamental misjudgment of value,
Right.
focusing on the little worth things instead of the priceless
But
ones?
how much might be due to letting those inner creepers, craving, anger, resentment, fear, take root and start to choke the potential for living that life the Buddha described? A life lived very happily.